on my little survey. But that's fine. I like to sing and make up songs. Hey, Facebook. Hey, YouTube. I'm just saying hey to Instagram. It's your girl, Christian Jackson, your licensed mental health and wellness professional homegirl, coming to you live for Wellness Wednesdays with CJ. I am so excited to have you guys here with me here on my YouTube and my Instagram. What's up at Couch with Christian? You guys here on Instagram, catch me at Couch with Christian if you're not already following me. I am the daddy issues expert, a licensed therapist here in Columbia, South Carolina, and I've been doing this therapy thing for a minute. I dropped a book last year. She's almost a year old. Daddy Issues. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her and what we have been doing with this Daddy Issues movement. So allow me to introduce myself. As a licensed therapist, I specialize in trauma, and my book, Daddy Issues, How to Detangle from the Sins of Our Fathers, is a way for me to have, at that time, process the emotional trauma that I have dealt with after having a difficult relationship with my own father. So I know the light is weird here on Facebook and YouTube, but we're going to go with that. I do want to say that this journey here is not only mine, it is also that of women that I've seen over the years in treating their emotional trauma with their fathers, right? So it kind of came to fruition because I was frankly triggered by people in my own caseload for their daddy issues. And I couldn't very well sit there and say, hey, yes, it's me too, because I cannot make the session about myself. I just can't. So I went to therapy, a lot of journaling, a lot of healing, a lot of introspection, a lot of reflection, right? Which is what I offer a chance for you to do in the book. And so the book is going to outline for you what daddy issues are, because I made up a diagnosis that really gives you a chance to say, hey, I also have abandonment issues and rejection issues and have problems kind of relating to other people, whether that's romantically or friendships or whatever the case may be. What's getting in the way, and how do daddy issues in particular impact that, right? And so that is what this journey is. It's a movement where I'm trying to destigmatize not only mental health symptoms, but also daddy issues. Like, you think about what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about what daddy issues is, right? Or what that term is and what daddy issues, the symptoms are. And so as you are reading through the book and seeing how daddy issues impact not only yourself, but your relationship with your kids, your partners, your coworkers, your family, what does it look like in the workplace? I just give you a chance to reflect every chapter in between for some questions where you can really answer for yourself what that even means. Why am I worried about daddy issues in friendships? How is that impacting my dating life? Why do I need to speak to my inner child, which is what we're going to get to today. And so you get to expound upon that in Her Sister, which is really the workbook. And the workbook gives you a chance to journal a little bit more on the questions that are already in the book, but there's more pieces in there, right? I give you more activities and other things that you can consider as you are working through your daddy issues. So I'm really excited because not only am I offering the book, which you can find on my website, it's at www.couchwithchristian.com. You can find it here in the link of my bio on Instagram. Also, it's scrolling down the ticker here on both Facebook and YouTube, where you can go and find out more about me, more about the movement, and you can purchase your books. The exciting thing, like I was saying, that comes on top of not only publishing the book is the fact that I'm leading a live group. The live group is called the Daddy Issues Healing Circle, and we are about halfway through the Daddy Issues Healing Circle right now. So anyone who wants to go to the website and go to the bottom of the homepage, you can hit me up there and I will find you so that I can get you a link so we can kind of get together on a video chat and have a consultation about how you ladies would be perfect for this group. So I really want to get a chance face to face to be able to tell you how we are walking through the workbook every week. We're chunking it up in pieces and really deep diving into some stuff that, y'all, I can't even like hold on to long enough. And I'm being very patient because I really want to write a second edition of Daddy Issues, because doing the work live with the women, which I already knew would happen, I'm learning a lot of stuff, right? There's so many things that I didn't put in the book that after talking to women and doing the group weekly, I know needs to just be part of it, right? And so I really wanted to make sure that I have that opportunity, and I'm gathering data over the next couple of groups. And I will be releasing probably a second edition over the next year or so. So I'm really excited because the movement is launching. No matter how small I am right now, I'm really appreciative of all the support so far. I want to get started because Wellness Wednesdays kind of comes smack dab in the middle for me and my family between dinner time and bath time. And I don't believe in wasting time. So I want to get into this 20-minute little blurb about reparenting yourself. Part of the daddy issues movement is acknowledging what we need as adults that we didn't get as kids. And those things like left us lingering with a lot of stuff. And so one thing that I heard that was really beautiful about therapy is that therapy is a chance for you to reparent your inner child. It's also like healing your ancestors. Another really beautiful quote that I've heard before describing what therapy is. So I wanted to share with you a couple of tips on how you can reparent yourself, because those are going to be the major keys to addressing your mental health. And so these tips here, I will expound upon in a blog where I'm going to share those things with you, and you can really kind of follow a little bit better. You can find the blog at my website, which is, of course, couchwithchristian.com, and kind of show up and comment and engage with me there. Last week, we talked about people pleasing. You can go back to my YouTube, follow the link on my website. You can also go to my page here on Instagram and just go back and look at my IGTVs, or here on my Facebook page. We talked about people pleasing. So you can catch up on that video and many more. They're all going to tie in to kind of what I've been saying, what I'm going to talk about tonight. So people pleasing, if you don't already know, is that approval seeking tendency that we have as people, because we want to make sure that we are impressing other people. But really, I want to expound upon that. It's more than that, right? I didn't even mention this last week, but the people pleasing mentality is more than just, I want to do this so that you'll like me. Sometimes it's because it is how I am safe. It's how I feel safe. And so I can't really show up in this space without feeling threatened unless I know that you're okay. So I'm going to sacrifice my own needs so that you are approving of me, and that I'm safe and I'm operating in these bubbles and in these spaces, right? So people pleasing is a huge piece of what I've seen for women who have daddy issues, for sure. And that is one of the archetypes I write about as I'm describing to you what daddy issues are. And so people pleasing ties into this subject for tonight, which is, how do I reparent myself on my healing journey, however that looks, because we learn people pleasing from who raised us, whoever is part of our village, right? And so one of the first things that I want to reiterate here, or introduce to you here if you haven't heard it already, is, what do you think you needed to physically feel as a child? So I want to invite you in a safe way just to think about some non-major triggering examples of what your childhood was like. When you were triggered for something, maybe it was, I was bit by a dog, and that was a really traumatic experience for you. And that taught you not to trust furry things, right? And so every time you're around a dog, especially, you don't feel safe, you don't feel secure, you don't trust. And now as an adult, that's bled into a lot of different things, because maybe you're a survivor of trauma and just had that message of, I don't feel safe, reinforced over different experiences over life, right? And so that just evolves, right? And it just bleeds over, and it's pervasive, meaning it shows up in different areas and different settings with different people, this idea that I don't feel safe. So our bodies remember what happens to us physically. So the question that I have here is, what do you think you needed to physically feel in the moment where you were not safe physically, when you were traumatized, right? In order to reparent yourself, it's going to be important for you to listen to your body and give it what it needs. And so this past week, when we did attachment styles for the Daddy Issues Healing Circle, we did some work where we kind of revisited what our tendency is as we show up in different spaces. And we have to listen to what our bodies need. We have to listen to those messages and be aware of how we respond. And so if it's a negative reaction, it's likely based, like I said, on a traumatic event. And it's running on a message that's truly outdated. So a lot of the trauma work that I do sometimes is to make sure that we are pulling out those things, those tendencies that we have, to go back to a message that is safe-ish. And I say safe because it's really a chance for us to say, okay, I'm used to this, no matter how chaotic it is. I know and I'm familiar with this cycle. What is that message that you're running on? It's like running on an old operating system, right? How do we update it? That is part of what I do in trauma work. So if you are doing a body scan and you're realizing that you're not safe physically or emotionally, what do you think you might have to physically feel? What is that thing that you needed? Because the theme for tonight, as we are reparenting ourselves and learning what that looks like, is those things you might have needed before are likely the things you need now, because that's left unresolved. Your inner child is still there, left unhealed and confused, and wondering, after 20, 30 years of leaving me alone, older self, what are you going to come back and tell me, right? And so that's what we did this past week, is we touched on inner child work just very, very, very quickly in the group, because it's a lot to kind of cover, but an opportunity that you have in the book. And as you read the Daddy Issues books and the workbook, you get to go back and say, hey, let me write this letter to myself and see what I physically needed. Was it in that moment that after I was bitten by a dog, I didn't need to be told, what were you doing in that yard anyway, that I needed a hug? Or that I needed somebody to kind of stroke and kind of bring me down and kind of get a hang of those symptoms and that physical reaction? That I need some water? Like, what is it that I needed? And this is important because that bleeds into that self-care piece, right? If you are familiar with what you needed as a child and you start to give it to yourself now, what you're doing is practicing giving yourself the thing that you may not have gotten. And you're getting to the mode of really kind of telling your inner child you're aware, you understand, and you want yourself to be better. The next thing that we go over when we're doing trauma work, and the second tip to reparenting yourself and really tending to your inner child, is think about what you needed to hear, right? So we have ants, what we call automatic negative thoughts, ants, and they are usually based upon messages that you got when you were younger. My friend Jessica is in here on Instagram, and she talks a lot about scripting of Envision Counseling, Jessica of Envision Counseling, and she talks about scripts. What is it that you heard a long time ago from whoever? And so in the Daddy Issues movement, what I'm doing is taking that angle of from the Daddy Issues point, like on the spectrum, whether your father was present, not present, for whatever reason, along that spectrum, what is it that your father told you that really influenced how you saw yourself, other people, how you show up in different spaces and in different relationships? Like, what are those messages? Because you likely need to go back and revisit them. And not just from your father, but from anyone. So what is it that you thought you might have needed to hear when you were dating? What did you wish you learned about intimacy and about sex? Because a lot of those are pretty commonly misconstrued, and they just kind of confuse us as we move forward as adults. What are those things that you needed to hear? What did you need to hear when you were getting your A's and you were in that performative space in your relationship, trying to get maybe daddy's attention and you didn't get anything? Maybe you need today to start telling yourself that you're doing a great job. Does it have to be someone else that validates you, or can it just be you? Can you just give yourself the props? So what did you need to hear? Those are important because we're literally in those moments recreating those experiences that trauma told us we are going to be stuck in forever. So what you're doing is kind of switching the record, if you will, if you're following that example. And I want to go on here and read Envision Counseling's point here. All the world is a stage, and we are just actors in it. Our scripts are the things that we act out daily, and that can be changed and improved. Bing. Thank you, Jessica. Because it's important for you to know that you have the power and the control. And I hope you guys got that on Facebook and here on YouTube, that jewel being dropped by Jessica of Envision Counseling. So think about what you needed to hear, and you have an opportunity to do that. And there's a really powerful piece, a method of therapy called narrative therapy. And you can do just that. You rescript all of that stuff. What is it that you think you needed to hear? Why do you think you need to hear that? You likely need to hear it today. This is us talking about how you can reparent yourself, really, whether you're going to therapy or not. Some people aren't ready for therapy. So then how can you give yourself those things that you didn't get as a child, to maybe even take that next step later to get to therapy? Because maybe you need to kind of hear that validation from yourself and that encouragement from yourself to your inner child to maybe even go to therapy, right? So far we've talked about how to reparent yourself. The first thing you need to do is kind of tune into how your body reacts to certain triggers. What did you physically need? Now we're talking about what you need to hear. And the last little tip I'm going to give you, of course, as usual here on Wellness Wednesdays with CJ for free, is that what do you think you need to do for fun? I personally love me some Disney. Okay, I grew up on that. It was like a fantasy escape thing for me. Didn't have a terrible childhood, but there were certainly a lot of things missing. And a lot of that was some adventure, like consistent feeling of love and fantasy and just getting out and getting those things, right? I just like that kind of thing. And so what is it that you didn't get to do when you were a kid? Literally, if that's you never riding a bike and wanting to learn how to skate or skateboard or go to Disney, do that. Give yourself that, because you're not grown past those things. There's a lot of things that I do with adults, in therapy that I have also kind of introduced to adolescents when I used to work with them directly. That could be anything from coloring to painting to using Play-Doh, using your hands and getting that tactile grounding experience on. Those things that sometimes, as the child that was maybe raising their siblings or had the responsibility as a single child because mom or dad were working or were not there, those things get lost. And so, what is it that you can do for that inner child that is screaming for fun? What can you do for her or him? That's important because, again, with trauma, the whole crux of it all is that there are so many things that are left unresolved, unattended to, and that is why we need to go back and give ourselves those things that we need. So give yourself permission to do that, to go and run a foot race with your cousins and them. You know what I'm saying? At the family cookout, why not engage with the kids and jump and bounce house? Have fun. What do you think you might have needed? Giving yourself those things, right? And so that could sometimes take you talking yourself into doing it. So again, we're addressing those automatic negative thoughts that said, you're too old for that. You'll look silly. What's the point of doing this whole thing? There's a reason and a method behind the madness, right? What you want to do is disconnect from all of the responsibility and lack of control and the craziness that come with life sometimes, right? And why should you have to explain that to anyone? The whole point of today, of course, is to make sure that you know and leave this Wellness Wednesday knowing that you have the responsibility really to yourself to resolve the things and give yourself the things that you did not get when you were a kid. All of us have them. And a lot of people like to give slack and talk about us who are still trying to engage with our inner child because he or she or they are still presenting themselves. I talked a little bit about part work before with the colleague earlier this week. And what parts, how old is that person that's showing up when you're triggered? Maybe my 7-year-old self is showing up when I'm with certain crowds because that's when I was bullied. I don't know. Like, what did that child need in that space? Because maybe when you're with colleagues and you're in a space at a board meeting or something at work and you feel inadequate and that comes up, that's not for nothing. It's because that child needs to hear something now and today. And it was probably something they didn't hear before. I just want to thank you guys for your time. And I hope that you guys have other tips that you would share in the comments. Please do. I go back and I comment, I engage because I think that it's important for us all to collaborate on this healing journey. I know I'm not the end all be all and I do not know everything, but please be on the lookout for blog entries on this here subject on how to reparent yourself. Again, if you're just joining us and I see some people kind of trickling in here at the end, and that's fine. We're talking about how to reparent yourselves and the importance of that piece. If you're going to talk about that healing journey and the next steps, that is what's going to help you to get to the next step of kind of getting what you want, seeing the world the way you want to. And sometimes it's just important for us to see the world the way our kids do. I'm a parent. And sometimes I complicate things. Well, a lot of the times I do. And my 10-year-old, and even the other day, my 4-year-old said something really impactful. And it was just like, Christian, you're doing things, you're doing too much. You're doing the most. So how can you see the world through a child's eye? And not in an immature way, but really like, how can we simplify it? Because as we go along, we're the ones who make life weird, right? It's our fault. I'm Christian Jackson of Couch with Christian. You can visit my website, which you see scrolling down here on the bottom of the screen, on my Facebook and my YouTube. Please go like and subscribe to this video on my YouTube channel. Join the grassroots Daddy Issues movement with me, help it grow, share it with everyone. I want to say that today, and this is the first time I've said this yet, the Daddy Issues Healing Circle Round 2 has its first member officially signed up. I talked to someone today. I'm doing consultations here a couple of months before I open up the next round of the Daddy Issues Healing Circle. And so if you want to know more about me or the movement, again, visit my website. Follow me on Couch with Christian on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, and you can find out a little bit more about me to vet me, and I respect that. I get it. But if you want to be part of the movement, they are limited slots at this point because I want to make sure we're at a safe, effective capacity for the group. And so the next group will begin July 26th, and we already have our first member signed up here in May. 2 months ahead of time. I'm pumped. So sis said, I ain't playing. Okay. And so if you know of a woman or you are a woman who wants to be a part of this group, hit me up. Let me know. We'll get started. Thank you guys for your time. I have been Christian Jackson, your licensed mental health and wellness professional homegirl, and I will see you in 2 weeks because your girl's going on vacation next week. So this will be a great time for you to catch up on all the Wellness Wednesday videos. Y'all have a great one. See you next time. Hey.